If you've been to Santa Fe in the last year or so, you've probably already experienced this fun house meets art house meets Alice in Wonderland. The House of Eternal Return by Meow Wolf is the recipient of an AOA this year for Connected Immersion on a Limited Budget. It's innovative, quirky, imaginative, and engaging. And joining us this morning to share their special vision are Meow Wolf's CEO, Vince Kadludbeck, sorry, Vince, and COO, Sean Deanne.
Great. Thank you. Yeah, so I'm Vince Kadludbeck. I'm the CEO of Meow Wolf, one of the co-founders.
And I'm Sean Diani. I'm the Chief Operating Officer, also a co-founder.
So yeah, first off, it's a total honor to be here with so many industry leaders, so many people who we respect dearly, and it's kind of amazing that we're even in this room with everybody here. So thank you, and thank you for those who nominated us and those who have brought us into this conversation, into an industry that we didn't really even know that we were a part of. So thank you. I'm a card-carrying member of ACE, and I've been a long-time roller coaster freak. And Disney obsessed as well. And so it's really just sort of mind-boggling. Thank you guys. Meow Wolf, we opened the House of Eternal Return in Santa Fe, New Mexico about a year ago. And it's a result of a pretty crazy story of how we got there. And I think that's an important aspect of what the product actually is, and where is where we came from. So I want to talk a little bit about that. We started in 2008, and we were just an artist collective. We were a bunch of 20-somethings in Santa Fe who didn't know how to get our artwork out to the public. We didn't have a venue that we could show at. We didn't have the museums weren't really interested in our work. So instead of waiting for ourselves to be invited into somebody else's venue, we pulled our limited funds together and said, let's rent our own building and let's make our own stuff. So an open door art collective, we had no rules of how you got in. There was no payments of, you didn't have to like commit any sort of amount of funds. You just had to show up and participate all on volunteer hours. And so we were pulling materials out of dumpsters, old TVs, and stacking them and making these sort of art installations that were multimedia and really poppy and maximalist and made out of stuff like paper mache and staple guns and fabric and stuff we literally pulled out of dumpsters. Zip ties. Zip ties were like the best for a while. Black light, psychedelic, stuff like that. We got better and better at building things. And we had some amount of general public kind of walking into our weird, gross, grungy spaces and enjoying it, crawling around on floors they probably shouldn't have been crawling around on. We just kind of like kept on growing the team, growing the skill set. And then we got, in 2011, 3 years after we founded the art collective, we did a project called the Do Return, which was a giant boat. And this was the first time when we really kind of like all focused as an artist collective on the concept of a kind of like true production. It was a $50,000 budget, which at the time was insane to our team. When I went to the team and said, we got to raise $50,000, they all thought I was crazy. And we didn't pay ourselves at all. That was all materials. And it was this boat where we worked on it for like, 6 to 8 months, something like that. And we had about 100 people working on it. And we didn't know what we were doing. We were just creating this boat. And this boat had this, we started like adding layers to it. So this boat had a narrative where it was like traveling from time space to time space, environment to environment. And the audience that got to come and see this, they got to explore that time space, got to explore that environment, and then also explore the boat and all the different bunk spaces that the crew members lived in. And we embedded stuff like a library, an archive that told the history of the boat and the crew members that lived on there. And what we realized from this project was that the general population, this is Santa Fe, New Mexico, was craving this like immersive storytelling experience. We had 25,000 visitors in the 3 months that the project was up. And most of those visitors donated some money to us. So I realized like, oh, this could be a business. This could actually be like a for-profit sort of thing. And so it took a few years. It was like, that was 2011. And over the years after that, like I tried my best to put my thoughts down on paper. Like, okay, if 100,000 people came every year and we charged them this much, then this is how much we would make. And then that's how many artists that we could pay. And, just in my own sort of DIY sort of way. Nobody believed, nobody believed us that this could actually be a business. No investors wanted to hear it. I'd take like this piece of paper to a bank and the bank's like, what are you doing here? And so nobody believed us until we met this guy, George R. R. Martin, who's the author of Game of Thrones. I met George. I was working with him at his theater, and I said, hey, George, we have this crazy idea. There's this old bowling alley in Santa Fe that's 30,000 square feet, and it's been defunct. And I think we can build something really amazing inside of it. And I told him the idea of the project, and he said, sure, let's do it. And so then, 14 months later from that point, we opened the House of Eternal Return.
Cool. Thanks, Vince. So yeah, as Vince said, to our great surprise, 14 months later, we opened the House of Eternal Return. So I'm going to tell you guys a little bit about that experience. I recommend you see it for yourselves, though. The House of Eternal Return is a 20,000 square foot immersive storytelling experience that's centered around this Victorian house. It's the first thing you see when you walk in, but it's not the first thing you have to experience. This is a totally choose your own adventure experience. You can go any direction you want. There's no maps, no guides, no tracks. Most people tend to walk inside the house first, and when you do that, you start to realize that there's something strange about this house, other than the fact that it's built in an old bowling alley. And you're doing this there's no actors or performers in the space. Sometimes we activate it with performance, but typically a guest just walks through the space and starts to explore. So for instance, this is the mother's art studio, and you can open up those drawers, you can read the books, you can read the journals, and you start to get a picture of this family that lived in the house and something that's happened in the house. And you start to kind of piece together this mystery. Pretty soon you're finding weird portals to other dimensions. So you can open up the refrigerator and there's a long white hallway that takes you into another world. Or the dryer has a wormhole in it that you can slide down into if you're feeling adventurous. And the house is about 1,800 square feet, and then there's the rest of the experience, which is a kind of maximalist, psychedelic, artist-driven world that's sort of like the family's imagination manifest in the space. There's over 75 different spaces, all created by artists. We worked with about 150 artists to make the House of Eternal Return. There are interactive elements, a lot of interactive musical instruments like this laser harp that you can pluck. And there's layers of ways that you can engage with it. So kids can just go crazy and run around and have fun. Or as you move through these spaces, you might discover that there are tiebacks in every space to the narrative in the house and to the history of the family and to the event that's occurred here. So these are just a couple shots of the project. And then this is a brief video that kind of walks you through a couple of the spaces.
So I'm going to kind of go quickly through different milestones. It's a crazy ride that we were on over the last couple of years. After meeting George saying, yeah, let's go through this, let's do this, we also sort of simultaneously had joined a startup accelerator that was focused on creative startups. This was our first engagement with anything business related at all. None of us have a business background. I barely graduated high school, let alone go to college. And this was our first opportunity to really learn about business. And through that process, we actually took first place in creative startups. We won $25,000. It was the first $25,000 in our bank account to do this project. And that was about 14 months before we actually opened the doors. What did we do with that first $25,000? Well, we went to Disneyland. I was adamant. I was like, you guys, I know it's crazy, but let's just like put aside about 10,000 of the 25 and let's like treat ourselves. And so, and the team was like, okay, yeah, let's do it. So we went to Pirates of the Caribbean, we went to Disneyland, and like got in touch with the true inspiration. A couple months later, we had a press conference with George and with the mayor of Santa Fe, where we had some concept art. And it was really like starting to breathe some life into this possibility, even though it was still like crazy. There wasn't really much money at all in our bank account to actually make this happen. Luckily, there was a writer from The Guardian there at that press conference, and they ended up writing this really early stage article about this project that got us like a ton of traction with investors. So we raised like $150,000 pretty quickly after that. We started to do something that we had never done before, which was employ artists, which was to pay people to make work. We had never done that before. And so we started the process of like, actually making this happen in a real way.
So part of that process was also, remember when Vince was saying that we used to just pull stuff out of dumpsters? Well, we were still doing that up to that point. And now that we had a little bit of money, we could do something like buy a truck. Which we thought we were just going to buy the truck so we could pull more stuff out of dumpsters. But then we started raising more money and bought some more tools. This was a CNC router that we got. All this was like blowing our minds, right? We were just scrappy artists and never really had any of these resources. And now we're gearing up a fabrication team. We're bringing people in to train us on digital fabrication techniques. And at the same time, we're getting our minds blown by the fact that, oh, we have to get this thing permitted. What's that? And we were overseeing the renovations to the building at the same time that we were overseeing the renovations or overseeing the build of our exhibition. So some of it was fairly straightforward, and some of it was a little bit more complicated. This is a layout, an early layout of the exhibition itself. We brought the city in. We collaborated with the inspectors. We worked with an architecture team. We worked with our own artists. We got it permitted. That was a huge milestone for us. And while all that's happening, it's taking forever. So we're having to make some progress on the art side of things too. So we start prefabricating stuff off-site. This is a space called Portals Bermuda. We built entirely off-site in modules and then brought up into the space when it was ready. But the very first thing that we got into the space was actually a real landmark moment for us. We had been waiting months, and we had been working in the parking lot to cut this school bus in half, which we thought would be fun. So we also cut a big hole in the building in order to get it inside, and we stood it upright, and that became the anchor to the rest of the construction. So we built out all the framing around the school bus. So the construction process, like I think somebody before was saying, leave more time for construction. We figured that out too. But we got there, and the artists were kind of like chomping at the bit to get inside.
Yeah, so Santa Fe is a small town, 70,000 people. And the buzz was out. Like Meow was doing something really weird and crazy over at the bowling alley. But it was taking forever to really get to the place where we wanted. Not forever, but it was taking months longer than we thought. And so I decided we need to put a big robot in the parking lot in order to show that, like, yes, something truly exciting is happening. So we put a 30-foot tall robot in the parking lot. We also put a giant tarantula here. A lot of Burning Man sculptures that just sit in storage for 350 days a year. And so I highly recommend people pulling those out of storage and putting them in your parking lots. But we were hurting. Like, so one thing that we learned, the question was like, one of the questions was, what did you learn that you would do differently? One would be that we would raise all the money before we started paying a bunch of people. We were raising as we were building in a really intense sort of way. We ended up raising 2.7 million when all was said and done. But there were moments where on Friday we had $5,000 in the bank account, and on Monday we had $75,000 worth of paychecks to cut. And I had to do a lot of digging deep. Big moment happened when our current board member, Stuart Alsop, came forward. He did a 15-minute walkthrough of the install and said, how much more money do you need to finish the project? And I gave him the number, and he wrote a check on the spot for that. That got us to the finish line. It really got the artists being able to do what the artists need to do, get in there. We had the funds needed to get basically the doors open and get the sign up on the building. We had this really awesome moment about a week before we opened where the LA Times wrote an article about us, about how this thing was about to open. And then finally on March 16th of last year, we opened the doors to the House of Eternal Return. And we didn't know we didn't know, you know, it was a small town, 70,000 people. We didn't know how successful this was going to be. But I can now say, I'm proud to say that Meow is successful. We've had over 300,000 visitors. Thanks. So we've had over 300,000 visitors in the first 10 months. That's now grown to about 400,000 since then. 5 million in gross revenue, 160 million impressions in the first year. Stuff just shares like crazy on Facebook and online, and a ton of 5-star reviews. I mean, people saying this is better than Disneyland. But one of the best, which I don't agree with, but one of the most amazing things is that we are the #1 most Instagram thing in New Mexico. That's above Balloon Fiesta, that's above White Sands. So, and that happened in our first year. Ton of coverage internationally. Where are we going from here? We want to grow. We want to move into other cities. We think of Santa Fe as being the prototype. If it was going to work in Santa Fe, it's going to work elsewhere. Let's get some crazy, weird, psychedelic art going in major markets. 1 million to 2 million visitors a year in these markets is what we can project. We're also building out the team in a more creative studio sort of way, like branding. You know, all these artists have incredible ideas. So we connect the business side with the artist side, and before you know it, we can just start popping off all these really interesting DIY, sort of localized pieces of merchandise. And through these processes, we end up inventing a lot of things. We invented our own blacklight, for instance, because we didn't have enough money to buy like big expensive blacklights. We also kind of created our own IP, our own creative IP, characters and such. So we're thinking more along those lines, doing feature films, documentaries, video games, and thinking about Meow Wolf as a real creative brand for the future that respects the visions of the artists that we work with, rather than having a top-down artistic aesthetic that everybody tries to achieve for us, if that makes sense, kind of flipping the model. So that's Meow Wolf. Thank you guys for listening. Appreciate it.
We have 11 minutes for questions, so please get out your, there we go. Runners are in the aisle. Terrific, thank you.
Hi, my name is Bryn. I'm a TEA Next Gen member. My question is, when you get an artist to do an installation, how much freedom do they have to just create what they want to create? And how much do you guys say, okay, but it has to include the narrative of the House of Eternal Return as a whole?
We actually, the narrative in a lot of ways came second. So the artist's work happened first, and then we like reverse engineered the narrative around it. So in our minds, I mean, we gave, for the most part, artists had essentially total freedom when it came to like the creative, artistic side.
Yeah.
To work around some like code issues,
and it iterates a lot. So there are writers who are just developing narrative, and there are visual artists who just want to make stuff, right? And so they'll communicate, and that process of developing the narrative is very iterative. the narrative will take a step forward. That'll inspire an artist to make something. An artist will take a step forward. That'll inspire a writer to do something.
With regards to narrative, we think of narrative as only one medium. Like, it's not the entirety of medium. It's like you have painting, you have sculpture, you have lighting, you have story, and that those are equal. And that, so much of our experiences, the narrative dominates everything, film or, Disneyland. I mean, the narrative is so overwhelming, but we like to actually give a lot of space for abstract experience.
I'm getting a very big, more interesting IKEA vibe. That's just what I picked up. I'm curious it's titled The House of Eternal Return. Is it a one-trick pony? What brings people to want to return eternally?
Yeah.
Well, kids don't
the name.
care. Yeah, the name. Kids can do the same thing over and over and over and over and over and over again without even thinking twice about it. I think Frozen is a good example of that. And so, whether it's good or not, they want to do it over and over again. So we don't worry about kids having return business. With regards to us, we have music shows. We have hip hop artists and punk shows, and indie acts come through, and people come and see shows inside of the exhibition. We also have upgraded it. So we've added new elements over time. We're thinking in major markets though that it's going to be such a big experience. Like when we go to Austin or Denver or Houston, we're going to build something 5 times the size, 100,000 square feet of sprawling space. You're going to need to come back 2 or 3 times in order to get the whole thing.
Yeah, so I think there's opportunities for it to evolve, for us to change things out, for the narrative to evolve, for there to be digital overlays. A big part of it actually is that it's become like a community space too, and the people who work there are really excited about being there and working there. They have ambitions. They want to change the show. They want to update it. So it's built into the exhibition that artists will continue to bring energy to that space, and we think that would mean that people want to come and see it.
David Price Leisure Group. It's kind of a related question, but I'm really kind of curious about the gross revenues on this, and really where are the revenues coming from? And in terms of kind of expanding on the idea, you've created this laboratory. I see all kinds of possibilities for it, from that would extend stay, give people more reasons for being there, for coming back. In terms of the current model?
Yeah.
Where did the gross revenues? How did they come in, and how do you imagine building off of that model? So, of our 5 million. 4.2 was admissions, 800,000 was gift shop, was merchandise. So almost entirely off of the admissions. Our ticket price is also really pretty low. It's $15 for adults and $10 for kids. And so, we had a throughput of about, 300,000 people in the first 10 months coming through the doors. So the majority was admissions. And what's interesting about our project is that, we have the way that throughput works is that in a 20,000 square foot space, we can fit about 700 people in there, and we can process about 350 people per hour. The amount of people stay about 2 hours inside the space. So then that creates your throughput, about 350 people per hour on a consistent basis. We are at capacity in Santa Fe, New Mexico. We're at capacity 70% of the time. So when we go to a market like Austin or Dallas or Denver or whatever, we're going to have to increase the capacity greatly in order to have that throughput. So now our throughput's looking more like 1,500 people per hour in a major market. So, looking at $25 tickets. So something like $45,000 or $40,000 per hour of revenue through just the admissions. And it's self-guided. So there's no track, there's no lines, there's no people. Basically just they take care of themselves inside of the space. So it doesn't need to be too overly staffed or overly programmed. So it's a really interesting model. People are literally paying money to just walk around space. There's no rides. There's no, and they're loving it. And in the future, of course, like food and beverage,
additional programming, merchandise, the IP, the sort of the potential of new technologies. That's all there too. But the admission really is a strong backbone.
Yeah, hi, Pat Gallegos. I wanted to say less about the project, which is really incredible, than about speaking to everybody in the room about the nomination process. So last July, my wife and I were in Santa Fe, as we often go there. It's a great city. If you haven't been there, you should go. And my cousin of mine told me about this cool project called Meow. And I said, what is that? So we stopped by just at the end of the day and thought that we would wander around. And we said our friends we were with were also professionals, and we pretty much thought we'd seen it all. We've either worked on or been to all the great places. And so this is in a bowling alley. So we walk in, we find somebody that said, can you give us somebody in charge? Sean walks out and says, hi, who are you? And I said, well, I'm a past president of the TEA, and we represent this whole industry. He says, yeah, we know about that. What can we do for you? And he let us wander around, and we thought, we'd wander around for 10 minutes and then go have margaritas before dinner. Well, an hour and a half later, we left only because we had reservations for dinner. And I said, Sean, you really need to submit this for a THEA award. I'm happy to help you out wherever I can. And what I'm saying is there are these jewels all over the place, and people don't know about this opportunity. They might know about the industry, but anybody can nominate a project, whether you worked on it or not. I had nothing to do with this project other than I love Santa Fe and happened to stop by. So it's an opportunity. There's a lot of opportunities out there, and I think that you guys are discovering a whole new industry and are now members of it one way or the other. So.
Yeah, thank you, Pat.
Thanks, Pat. We really appreciate that.
Hi, Susie Cowan. Roberta, can you see me now? I'm standing. Sean and Vince, I also went
Cool.
last year in October, and it was amazing. Very impressive. And I actually ran into a family where the kids had dragged their father back because they wanted to kind of explore that ARG-like story you've got going on in the house. Mm-hmm. So that was pretty cool. But you have a makerspace there. You have a lot of other things going on, and you might want to share that. And I don't know if you're looking at incorporating that in your future spots, because that seemed to bring the community together as well.
Yeah, totally. So we started out as an art collective, and we have our roots are in coming together as a community to make art, creating opportunities for artists and creatives, and that'll continue to be part of what we do in other cities. We also really like the idea of somebody coming there and having their minds blown, and then realizing that, they can get their hands dirty too. Minds blown, hands dirty. Yeah. So yeah, we have a learning center, and we teach classes in the learning center. We do work in schools. We do outreach programs in schools. And we'll look for strategic partners to help with that in other markets, to look for arts nonprofits to help bring that aspect to the complexes as we build them out, for sure.
And just to add on that, it's really important for us, as a business, yes, we want people to be consumers, but we also recognize as a B corporation, as a benefit corporation, we also want to contribute to people not only just being consumers, but being producers, being creative producers simultaneously. So we want that feeling to exist, that people aren't just going to spend money, they're also engaging in a creative process.
We have time for 2 quick questions if they're quick. Where are we? There we are.
Hey, and John Beckman from the Museum of Science Industry in Chicago. Hopefully it's a quick question. What's your staffing model like? That house where you can explore the drawers and open the cabinets and do the things. I mean, that wouldn't last 5 minutes in our building. So what's your guest experience and maintenance team like?
It's actually not as bad as you would think it is. It's becoming better and better. At first we were just closed a day a week, and we had 10 people in there fixing everything. And once you tell somebody that they can hit something and it makes a sound, then they're going to hit everything. You all know that, right? So we learned some lessons about that. It still remains pretty open to exploration. And we have to replace the journals, and we have to replace the papers, and sometimes we have to fix stuff. But we have a good staff, a good team that does that. And it's the amount of people that we need for that is actually going down as we kind of learn how to improve the durability of the pieces.
One last question, wherever it is. There it is.
Hi,
Back.
can you hear me? Hi. So my name is Amy Blackman, and I represent a team of rogue and marauding creative digital multimedia platform agnostic artists from Russia and Eastern Europe. And
Whoa.
we're working on bringing them into the United States, and we're fans of this project. We're very inspired by this project.
Cool.
And the question I've been dying to ask you is, as there's a lot of these types of really authentic, really organic, just art for art's sake projects becoming commercial outside of the US, you don't hear this happening as much here. And so you've achieved that, and now you're talking about replicating it and scaling it. How do you guys maintain or plan to maintain the authenticity, which is what made it successful in the first place, and the curatorial eye as you start to expand into other cities and bring in more artists?
The biggest question for us right now is, can we become a billion-dollar company and also remain an art collective? And I think we can do it. It's the challenge. That's the challenge for me. The challenge isn't becoming a billion-dollar company. It's, can we remain an art collective? And how do we do it? We do it in every conversation. I mean, from top down, it's the way you communicate. It's every word that you use. It's every conversation that you have. I don't know, the system's in place. I'm not sure. I'm not sure exactly. It's like a complicated system, I think, when you really think about it at large. But it comes down to, like, how do I talk to people? How do I talk to an artist? How do I respect what it is that they're envisioning?
Thank you, Vince and Sean. Everybody, let's thank Meow Wolf.